We're going to hear some more stories about getting to market. So to introduce, we've got Justin, who's on the end there, who's from a business called Taste Festivals. So we're going to hear about that. We've got Bertie from JustEats. And we've got Martin, who's the purchasing manager at Ace Hotel in Shoreditch, the busiest, craziest hotel in East London. And we've got Rose, who's head buyer at Ocado. So, esteemed panel. I'm going to allow each of them to share their stories and tips and tricks with you, and then we'll come to questions. So, okay, off we go.
My name is Justin. I'm the managing director of the Taste Festivals business. 11 years ago, we launched and started. And 11 years ago, the world and the landscape was entirely different from how it is now. The business that created the Taste Festival series was just a specialist organizer of consumer events. And we did some research 11 years ago and saw that food as not just a kind of something to eat, but as a passion subject was becoming more and more popular. So we thought it would be a good idea to create an event where people who loved food and drink could come and enjoy themselves. I apologise in advance about being biased about the one that we do, but it's kind of spawned a bit of an industry that is absolutely burgeoning. So we kind of thought that if you're going to do something that was special around food and drink, you had to work with the best people who are the champions of food and drink. And in our book, the champions of food and drink are chefs. They understand produce, they understand taste and flavour, they care more about actually delivering a food and drink experience that's off the charts. So we decided that we would create an event that was around chefs. And then we were thinking, well, if you're going to work with chefs, people who love food and drink want to engage with those chefs, not just through listening to them, but to actually engage with them and through their food, we thought. And then we kind of came to the kind of light bulb moment that where the best way to engage with the best chefs is actually through the things that they already do, called restaurants. And nobody at that point, 11 years ago, had ever asked a restaurant to actually come out of its bricks and mortar and actually meet the public. And fortunately for us, the first conversation that we had was with a little-known chef called Michel Roux Jr., who 11 years ago was just quietly getting on with running Le Gavroche restaurant. And he said, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. And the reason why he thought it was a great idea was because Le Gavroche at that time, and kind of still now, has a 3-month waiting list, and regular clients go back there, and it's quite difficult for a restaurateur to actually be able to reach a wider audience. And so to be able to kind of reach a wider audience to not just promote, but connect, he saw that as being a good thing. And fortunately, kind of so the story goes, Michel Roux Jr. happened to be the chef's chef, the one that all the other chefs looked to. He was so well respected, and then we did our first event at Somerset House 2004. Huge success, people loved it. It doubled in size and doubled in size and doubled in size for 4 years, got to 50,000 people, and then we decided that we wanted to keep it special about the very best chefs and the very best restaurants. And we decided that we would take exactly that format and do it in a different place. So we went overseas because we were really brave, and we went to a place called Dublin. And the Dublin event was a great success. Celtic Tiger was rampant. And so the story goes, we're now 22 festivals around the world. We've sent benchmarks everywhere in terms of creating a very rich engagement between people who love food and drink, chefs and restaurants and food and drink. I understand that this session is about routes to market. As I said before, 11 years ago, there was just us. Probably about 6 years ago, there were a few more. This year, there are tons. Food festivals, street feast, we feast, everything feast, you know, kind of Dalston and Shoreditch and everywhere. People are kind of sort of on the streets and in public places connecting. The reason for that, I believe, is that people genuinely love food and drink, and it's become a passion subject in a way that it wasn't before. People's awareness and understanding and knowledge is way, way beyond. And the good thing, I think, about being a food entrepreneur is that people's appetite for new and experimenting and different and understanding and engagement, especially in this country, more than most. This market, the UK market, in our opinion, is really, really sophisticated. But there is a real appetite for wanting to discover something new. And then in terms of, well, why are these kind of festivals doing well? As I say, taste is the one that I can talk about. It allows you to be able to do live market research whilst also promoting the brand, whilst also letting people try your product, whilst also making your brand human. And I think in this day and age of phenomenal social network, it is a brilliant way of starting the foundations and the roots of a fan base. And the fan base become your customers, become your advocate followers, and they are the people who then allow your product and your brand to just grow. And then you get into the points where you start looking at all the other marketing channels. But there are plenty, through the taste business, I've seen plenty and plenty of brands that started as two-man bands. One of our little small producers markets, paying £800 for a stand for 4 days, who then are coming back as being huge brands. One that kind of struck me the other year when I was reading about Fever Tree selling for £25 million or something. I remembered them very clearly 7 years ago being a brand new startup. And I kind of thought, wow, perhaps should have done that business. But anyway, it is great. It is a way in which you can, there are no restrictions, and if you've got personality and character, then in a live event format, that can all come through, and then your brand has its personality.
Thanks, Justin. That's great. Bertie, I see your story.
Thank you. My name's Bertie Cordinley, and I'm currently the Business Development Director for JustEats. I launched a business 7-8 years ago now, which was actually a competitor to JustEats, so I'm not the owner of JustEats, so don't get too excited. And sort of basically, when we sort of go back sort of 10 years, as Justin was saying, the landscape was very different. People weren't really ordering food online. When we sort of came up with this idea, it was what we thought completely unique. So we registered the domain name after thinking of the name fillmybelly.com on the way to a job interview. And then 2 years later, borrowed some money from some interest-free credit cards that we knew we couldn't pay back unless we took out another interest-free credit card. And that was our way of sort of funding the business for the first sort of 6 months. And then we launched. So we launched the business in June 2006, and the concept is very similar to what I'm assuming you probably know JustEats today. So what we were doing, we were aggregating local takeaways and giving them the ability to order online. Now, where this was sort of quite different is that we had to engage with the restaurants and educate those people that actually people would want to order online. At the same time, we'd have to do the consumer marketing and try and convince customers that ordering takeaway online was a good idea, which was quite difficult. At the time, I had no experience of the internet. I had sort of a sales background, so it was quite easy for me to go into the restaurants and sell them this dream that people would do it. But then actually trying to get the consumers to order was a completely different story. Interestingly, the original idea of the business was not to have the choice of takeaways. So the idea was that you would put your postcode in, and we would sort of show you a choice of Indian, Chinese, pizza, Thai, but not actually sort of choosing from the individual takeaways. And we found that didn't really work. We found that through customer feedback, in that people actually sort of wanted to know where they were ordering from. They wanted more choice. And people have their real sort of local takeaway heroes. So that's just an example of where actually sometimes you can start with quite a specific idea and really sort of go sort of full steam ahead trying to push it, but actually you realize that you have to change things as you go along. So what we did to sort of get our business to the market as such is because we work so closely with the takeaway owners, we were able to sort of get them to really buy into the brand. So they were printing their own menu, so we would try and get them to put our logo on menus. We would set them up their own sort of microsite so their customers could order. At the time, it wasn't very common that takeaways you could even sort of pay by card, and we were giving them card facilities as part of our service. So a great way for us to get new customers was when a customer's ringing the restaurant and ask if they could pay by card. They would say, yeah, of course, that's no problem. Simply log on, go into Fill My Belly, and you can make the payment there. And then, of course, that customer is ours. And they were subjected to our email marketing. Well, social media really wasn't that big then. I remember joining Facebook just simply to build the fillmybelly.com page. And it was very sort of difficult. I mean, it was using sort of traditional marketing methods at the time, things like leafleting, newspaper advertising. But because we had so little money, every sort of penny counted, and we were really sort of measuring in a real sort of granular way. We weren't sort of doing A/B testing or anything that sort of fancy. It was just if we sent out a leaflet drop on one particular day, I'd be sat in the evening watching the website hits, and sometimes you could sort of follow. We sort of used to track the postcodes that were going in, and you could sort of see when leaflets have been dropped on particular streets. I'd be so excited when, oh, someone's just sort of logged on, put their postcode in. And I think that's the sort of thing that you sort of have to remember when you're a startup. It's the little things sometimes that can sort of make a difference. You don't have to sort of go and spend thousands on TV advertising or other sorts of things like that. Actually, it's just the sort of real local targeted things that can actually sort of make a difference. What sort of happened with our business is where we launched in Nottingham, we became really strong. But what we found is because we never sort of saw any external investment as such, it got very difficult to try and scale outside of Nottingham. And then a company which I'd never heard of for about 2 years until we'd sort of launched the business called JustEats, were then trying to sort of get into Nottingham, making it very difficult for us to sort of scale outside. And after hating them and refusing to speak to them for about 3 or 4 years, I finally sort of started engaging with their MD of the UK, who's now the CEO, David. We got on really well, and then we made the decision to sell the business to them. So I was going to sort of hand over for about 6 months and then go and start something else. I had the idea that maybe people might want to order taxis. I wish I'd have done that one. But actually what I've sort of found is working for Just Eat is the company is amazing, the people are brilliant, and what I've sort of got an opportunity now is sort of what I'm hopefully sort of doing today is sort of take those experiences of working with the local restaurants, looking sort of at the granular feedback that comes back from those customers and actually applying that to a much bigger organisation, because they're the sorts of things, as a business grows, you forget. So even last week I was out in a restaurant just sort of working with them, making pizza boxes, just actually seeing how they interact with their customers, how they use the technology. And these are the sorts of things that as you grow become really, really important.
Brilliant, okay. Thank you. So the route to market is to fall in love with your competition.
Yeah, yes.
Great, Martin, so let's hear your perspective from Ace Hotels.
My name is Martin McHugh. I'm the purchasing manager at Ace Hotel in Shoreditch in East London. The hotel is 1 year open as of 9th of September gone, and we're the first Ace Hotel outside of the US, with the other properties being in Seattle, Portland, Palm Springs, LA, New York and Panama. At the moment they're looking at opening other properties. The building that the Ace Hotel is in at the moment, I worked in there when it was previously a Crowne Plaza. So obviously it went from this kind of middle-of-the-road corporate hotel into just the complete opposite. And as part of that in the transition from when I began in the company, the idea about everything within the hotel, from what's in the bedrooms to what you eat on your plate, to what plate it is, to what knife you have, everything was to be sourced with a reason. The company loves to hear things in relation to a story behind a product. That is the most important thing for them. They love that. And so many things when you go through our hotel, in relation to the new products we have of companies that have come to us, we always look at the story behind it. And I can even pick examples straight off from when we, let's say, opened the hotel. We have one very, very busy part of the hotel, which some people wouldn't believe is our minibar. And you can go to airport hotels that have 1,000 bedrooms, anywhere in London that will have 500-600. And the minibar is quite stagnant, it's quite regular. But in ours, we have up to 40 products. And we're looking at even expanding that and changing that. But the products that are within that are new companies. Things like popcorn, but it comes from a company called Peter Popple's Popcorn. We have sweets that come from a company called the Jella Sweets Company. And these are all new companies that came to us and introduced themselves to us and said, here's a sample, we think we look good in that. We put it together, our president sees it, they all have very unique titles in the company. Our product engineer, he looks at it and he says, yeah, that looks fantastic. Those two products, biggest selling products on the list. Last month, we done 17,000 in food and drink and minibars. And in the midst of that, the two big sellers, you have two new products. And when you go around the hotel and you look at other products from new companies, let's say our beer. We have what I would call probably one of the best beer lists in East London, because nothing against the big brands, we don't stock anything of the big brands. We only stock beers that are produced, actually there's only one that's not produced in the E postcode. One of the best ones that we would have would be through, let's say, Hackney, the Red Church Brewery. We have Hackney Gold and Shoreditch Blonde beers. Now they are located around the locality, but the difference with those products is that they come to us at the beginning, they give us their samples, they tell us about themselves, and they'll guarantee consistency in relation to what they offer us. And they've kept to that. So we're 1 year open, and with both their beers, we would sell approximately 12 cases of each beer a week. And that's fantastic for them. That's big business. And when you move on to other companies, one that has gone past the stage of microbrewery would be Camden Beer. That is our main beer in the hotel. We do about 100 cases of Camden Hell's beer alone a week. And they have had to do a transition of their deliveries for us over to DHL because they couldn't manage the demand. But because they have maintained the consistency, the quality of the product, the story behind it, and they communicate with us so much, that is what does it for them. That's what keeps the product a success. And if you were to push again to another area of the hotel, you look at the kitchen. Myself, I'm lucky enough in relation to the hotel to have everything to do with buying a pillowcase to a piece of chicken. And I have to make sure that I know everything about it. And that if I'm out and about, for example, like I was 6 months ago at a market on Chatsworth Road in East London, and there was a stall from a free-range farm outside London, and they had pork and chicken. And they had homemade sausages from the farm, and I think they were about £7, which was quite expensive, obviously, for sausages. But I said, I'm going to buy these for the dinner, and they were unbelievable. So I went to the chef, I told him about the company, we got samples, and now we have a dish on the menu which is called chicken with 40 cloves of garlic, and it is sourced chicken from them. The kills are arranged twice a week, and they supply us consistently every week since I got that product. And it's nothing to do with them being a massive company. It's to do with actually just the simple thing of me being out and about and saying, this is fantastic, I like this. Going back, and then they maintain the quality, they maintain the consistency. And that's what we love to see. If we have new companies coming in and they keep their business with us, it's selling, that is what we love. And that's what I would advise everybody to do, is to put your heart into it. And be so passionate about your brand, to push it out there, and know that you can be, if you were going to create a version of M&Ms, call them W's and W's, you could just make your own and be adamant that yours is better. And that is what we would love to see. That is what we like to see. And of course, I'll be here afterwards, and anybody that would like to talk to me about any new products you have, I'd be more than happy to help you out.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Who's got a product to pitch to Ocado? Ocado's to Ace Hotels. Between the two of you, cover everyone in the room. Okay, so and the Ocado, Rose.
Okay. I'm Rose Price, I'm the head of buying at Ocado. I've been in retail for a number of years, 4 years at Ocado, but I started my life as a buyer in manufacturing and then moved on to retail buying. So the sort of question that was asked of me when I came is, how do you pitch to a supermarket? So we're an online supermarket. We do £950 million a year in sales, and we have 50,000 products, so a huge number of products. Bigger than a Tesco Extra. Our food products alone are 30,000. But we love small suppliers. We love small suppliers because usually you have something really unique to offer. And our retail director challenges me every week. Have we got 2 products in everybody's basket you can't buy anywhere else? And that's really unusual for a retailer because that's not normally what you would find because of shelf space and having to get a return on that shelf space. So it makes life pretty hard if you're a small supplier. Life's still pretty hard regardless where you go if you're a small supplier. So before I came here, because retailers love presentations. The brand team did a small presentation. I actually have a presentation which I will send to the Virgin team to give you some hints and tips. It's about 10 slides, and you're welcome to get hold of that if you want, to try and help you when you come in to see us. Now, first thing is getting through the door. Don't send an email. You've already heard that. You've heard what the guy from Way did. He went to extreme measures and wrote the buyer a poem to make sure he got through the door. And that's probably a very good way to do things. Only probably if we started getting hundreds of letters a week, we'd probably start to not look at them in the same way. But we probably I perhaps get 2 letters a week now as head of buying. And so when I do get a letter, I do actually open it. So perhaps the way that Way actually chose to approach us and get in the door was a pretty good one. Emails, so even this morning, just to give you an example, I will have had 4 unsolicited emails from companies trying to sell me product. Generally, unless there's something in the very first line, unfortunately, they will go into a public buying email box, and then they will not get looked at again unless there's something in there the buyer's seen in the first instance that will make you open that product. The same thing is unsolicited phone calls. The worst thing is a Monday morning. All retailers are usually looking at their figures at that point, and the last thing they need is a phone call. So if you're going to, if you really think phone is the way you want to get in, I suggest it's probably Friday that you actually do that. But if you are going to pitch by phone, just make sure you've got a very good story you can tell in sort of 1 minute to get that buyer's attention. So just be mindful of that. But events like these are absolutely great because I'm here today, I'm here for a reason. I've been asked to talk, but I'm also interested in some of the products and already talked to 1 or 2 people over lunch and some really exciting and totally different products. And that's really good. But you've got to have a unique selling point, and you need to think about that really carefully. So we get offered, and I don't know if it's because it's perhaps the easiest thing to make sometimes, thousands of preserves and pickles. It seems to be the in thing at the moment. Now, every time one comes in, we have a little bit of a joke in the buying department. Oh, that's another unsolicited pickle or jam. Who's making these things? But actually this year we took on a whole new brand called Rubies in the Rubble, which some of you might have heard of, which is totally different and has a really unique selling point because it's dealing with waste, and it's also helping people to get jobs that perhaps were quite unfortunate and couldn't actually get employment. So there's a great story, and there's a great reason we'd want to take that. We ran our own Meet the Buyer and Britain's Next Top Supplier event last year, and actually we went through about 300 finalists to get to our chosen product, which was a craft beer. Now, we also have many, many craft beers come into the business, so if you'd have asked us when we set out on our journey if a beer would have won that, we'd have all probably said as a buying team, no, I doubt it. But the beer we actually chose was a honey beer. It's produced in London, and it's Hiver beer, and some of you may have heard of it. And actually, it's the honey that goes into the beer is actually produced in London, and it's produced actually from honey that's maybe beehives on top of buildings, etc. in London. Also, with that Hiver beer, the girl who'd actually developed this product had a packet of flowers that actually would then encourage more bees and more honey. So there's another point of difference. So really think about that unique selling point when you're trying to pitch, because as a buyer, as all buyers, we're trained to think about 3 things. We're thinking about the price. Is it the right price? Is it the right range? And can you get it in the right place at the right time? When you come into us, you need to have some very important things you need to know. You need to know who your target customer is, so think about that. You know, I've heard people talk about, well, this is a vegan product, this is vegetarian, fantastic. You're already starting to say, these are my target customers, so you're already starting to think about that. So really start to think about it. So we will know as a business who our target customers are, and we know that 82% of our shoppers are female, for example, so is your product a female product? If it's more inclined to females, perhaps we're the right place. If it's absolutely a male product, you know, we don't have that many male shoppers, although that's growing as more and more men shop due to the iPod. So think about all of those things when you're coming in to pitch. Also think about the price, think about your cost price and have a break-even point. We're trained to negotiate, so obviously the one thing you need to know is on your cost price, what is your break-even point? What is the lowest price you're absolutely going to go to? Because the buyer will equally have in their mind what the highest price they're likely to pay is. So you need to be prepared for that. Also think about whether you want to advertise it, particularly online. If there's 50,000 products, think about how you need to get to the top of the page. If you get yourself into one of the other large supermarkets, think about how would you get yourself on an end. Think about your promotional plan and how you want to grow. And more importantly, if you do get an order, think about really can you fulfill it. So when you're thinking about your target market, is it a local deli because you've actually, or a chain of delis because that's the production you can do, or is it actually I want to do 600 Tesco stores, or is it I want to do 3 CFCs Ocado? Because the worst sin you can have as a supplier is actually letting the company down and not delivering the product, because again that also affects your customers. Now particularly for online, because we've already taken orders up front for your product, and the last thing we want to do is let customers down. So start and think about all of those things. Also, another thing you will be asked when you come in to Ocado and all the other big retailers will be, are you SALSA approved? Or have you got BRC accreditation? So think about safe and legal questions you're likely to be asked. You know, are you working with your local trading standards authority? So all those practical things that you might need to consider. Think about where you're selling the product. So if you're going to offer me a cheddar cheese and you want me to sell it in Scotland, for example, actually it needs to be a red cheddar because it's more likely to sell. So start and think about all of those things when you're thinking about your marketplace. And the list can go on. So I have got, as I say, a presentation, because retailers love presentations. When you do come in to see the buyer, though, bring a presentation or send a presentation, because bear in mind, my team will see 4 different suppliers every day. So if you've given them a presentation, that will go on their desk or in their inbox, and even if you've done it in a course of an hour, they will probably go back and look at that. So think about that as well.
Brilliant, thank you, Rose. So many tips. It's amazing to cram them all in a short period of time. And it just strikes me how exciting it is, especially as we go up the food chain this way, how many opportunities there are for all of us today, which weren't, you know, with local products and startups. So we're going to go straight to questions. We've got 15 minutes. Before we do, someone has left their iPad in a black cab. They were probably doing an Ocado shop and got overexcited. If anyone has, talk to the bar team and the staff here so they can give it back to you. Who's got a question first up here?
My name is Juan, and I'm from Carpe Nuts, nuts of remarkable character. We provide an indulgent, tasty, yet healthy assortment of premium sweet and savory nuts. And my question is for Martin and Rose, and it's perhaps in terms of the operations and the challenge between working with a distributor or supplying you directly. And perhaps this comes from just some of the pushback that we're getting from some 5-star boutique hotels, whether they are willing to work directly with us or with a supplier who provides not only a nut for their minibar, but the whole range of small whiskey bottles, crackers, biscuits, etc. So perhaps if you can just share some advice in terms of working with distributors and what's the best way channel. Thank you.
I'll go first off. If I've a number of examples of that where I won't give the name of the supplier. They are on our minibar listing. We'll be removing them. And the reason being is they supply direct. They don't have any distributors of the product. And let's say, for example, at Christmas, I ordered the equivalent of about 400 bags of a particular item, and they got lost through a courier. And to date, when I place an order for that product, I sometimes am hesitant, am I going to get the order? And because of that, we're removing it from the list. We have actually removed it from the rooms. On another level, we have one particular type of, say, crisp that we have in the minibar, and we were given the option of to go with the company themselves direct or with a distributor that's actually based around here near Battersea. And we said we'll go with the distributor, and that was the best decision we made. That's a best-selling product, but as well as that, they phone me every Wednesday evening and they say, our van is in Shoreditch tomorrow. Would you like us to put on 20 boxes? And I go, yeah, please. And of that particular item, it's a crisp, it's a larger bag, we go through about 80 boxes a month of that one item. But we wouldn't go through the 80 boxes if it had the same practice as the other product. And personally, unless the company can commit to actually delivering consistently, then I would prefer to go through distributors.
And from Ocado's point of view, we would prefer to go direct to the supplier, but in some cases it is easier for us to work with distributors. So if you're going to deliver to us as a business, you need to deliver in a truck that's probably, well, it has to have a tailgate, so it has to come in on a pallet as well, so you are better to go into groupage. So you have to think, and with an ambient product it may be delivered 2 or 3 times a week. With a fresh product it would be delivered 7 times a week. So sometimes working with small companies, we have recommended distributors for those small companies to work with, just because logistically it's very hard for them, and we can't take vans into our business. So we will discuss with you directly how you would want to work.
Next question.
Hi, my name's Tessa. I'm wanting to open a healthy only eating restaurant, and I know it's placed in central London that kind of do like the cafe stars, like Detox Kitchen, Good Life Eatery. I want to go somewhere we can go for dinner and you can walk in and it's all healthy cooking methods, food, no refined sugar, cooking with coconut oil, etc. Do you think that there is a demand when there's so many amazing restaurants and the Michelin star restaurants? Do you think that there is a gap where there would be a demand for this kind of like healthy eating restaurants?
I actually think that Michelin starred is less important than it ever used to be in London in particular. There's talk regularly about fine dining actually being something that is kind of passed by, that any restaurant can do well if it's brilliant. And the part about a successful restaurant, the guy who I think is doing the most interesting things at the moment is a guy called Jason Atherton. And he was trained by Gordon Ramsay, and he obviously felt restricted because there was that method. But what he's got really, really right, and it's not so much about whether it's kind of healthy eating or whether it's a particular type of cuisine or anything. It's actually about the experience. When people come to a restaurant, people actually want to feel like they've had a great experience as well as a great meal. So service is really important, attitude is really important, authenticity is really important, ingredients is really important. And if you're all of those things and you get a reputation, then you'll be fine. Because social media, I love actually because it's fair. And if you're doing something that's not very good, no one's going to go. And if you're doing something that's great, and you've really thought about it, because this is something that Jason Atherton does in an obsessive way. He cares and looks at every little detail of that entire moment of the journey, from coming to the restaurant to leaving the restaurant. And the food is definitely an important part, but what's more important is that the overall experience is special, and you've actually kind of left thinking that was amazing. Because as soon as you do that, you've got an advocate. And there's nothing like restaurants actually at the moment for new styles of restaurants to just becoming, well, yeah, it was said earlier about overnight successes. Overnight successes take years and years, but to become really, really popular because you get a following. And everyone's looking for new, so just be good.
Yeah, just to add to that, actually, I mean, Just Eat work with a sort of wide range of restaurants, everything from sort of like your local Indian to Chinese, but also we're sort of seeing an increasing number of these sort of types of healthy restaurants. And I think the industry is changing quite a lot. I mean, from this year, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do it yet, but we have to list numbers of allergens. So, I mean, there's always sort of like your basic things like nut allergies, but I think there's now 27 allergens that the FSA requires sort of restaurants and takeaways to list. And I think as the sort of consumers shift to sort of, they're more aware of these sort of types of things and actually what they're eating. I think it makes a much sort of better market for something like that, because it levels the playing field. If you have your typical Indian takeaway that then suddenly when they have to list everything is full of stuff that you don't know, and then you have sort of comparing it to a restaurant like that, obviously for some people that actually do care about that, and there are a lot of people, it's really important. So good luck.
Just another point about that. That was said earlier about this niche thing, about going down that really particular market. You said that niche is sometimes a good thing. We do quite a lot of work with a guy called Jamie Oliver, and his attitude, and I agree with it, is that why would you want to limit your potential market? You want to maximise your potential market, but you can still have an offering that doesn't limit anyone, but can still be focused in a particular way. So there's another chef we work with called Bruno Lube, who opened a restaurant at King's Cross called The Grain Store, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's really, really focused around vegetables, natural ingredients and vegetables. But it doesn't do it in an exclusive way that says, if you eat meat, you can't come. It does it in a way that it celebrates brilliant vegetables, and some of the dishes have meat on, some don't. So it's like, but it's got a great reputation because it's brilliant. So it's kind of, don't be a niche, be available to everyone with a specific thing that you are great at doing.
My name's Claire, I'm from Popcorn Kitchen. We have a very unique popcorn we started popping by hand at small food festivals and farmers markets. We've done quite a lot of the other foodies festivals mainly, and we can take our kettle and we can actually pop there, which is great for us because that's a real point of difference compared to other retail brands of popcorn. We did do Taste of London with you guys this year for the first time, and found it much more of a challenge because we can't bring our kettle, which runs off gas because Regent's Park doesn't allow any gas. And kind of, I guess my question really, with a lot of food startups who are here, who are really small and really new, probably a lot of people who are even earlier in the business cycle than we are, is just how committed taste festivals are to small startup food businesses, because the cost of these events is actually huge. I've been talking to other people today about trade shows and all sorts of stuff like that, and when we're talking about marketing and money that none of us have, there are often small producer areas and so on and so forth, and I guess everybody has to make a living, so you guys also got to make money. But at Taste, for example, you have the crown system, and then you pay 10% commission on the crown processing, but if you don't take them, people don't buy because they're given the impression that they can only pay with crowns, so they don't bring cash. And I just wondered if there's a particular commitment to having new, exciting, small food businesses, or whether the real focus for you guys particularly is on the restaurants and the big chefs, and therefore the kind of bigger money that they can bring in.
It's, I run a business, as we all run businesses. I think it's fair to say that we're not cheap, because we're not. We've chosen to operate in one of the most expensive open parks in the UK. Our costs are kind of in line with that. Are we committed to, well, I'll tell you who we're most committed to, the public. We're committed to the public offering the widest variety of, we have this mantra of kind of food heaven. So we want people to be discovering and learning, trying, buying, feeling inspired. I agree with you that, as I say, we are not cheap, but then you sort of also get what you pay for, which is that on other festivals you don't have the scale that we have, you don't have the prestige that we have. And the other point is that we do a lot of work, not just in terms of getting the public to come to our events, but also to get key buyers to come to our event, and also to make sure that the restaurants, and I can tell you, because it happens all the time, for a product to be listed on a restaurant is almost impossible in environments where you're not actually kind of out of context. And one of the biggest values that we have, especially with small businesses, is actually being able to get listed into restaurants and meeting chefs directly. So I apologise about the gas issue, it's true. I apologise about glass issue, because that's true as well. We can't have glass on site because it's a public park. And I apologise about the fact it's expensive, but it's because we've decided to go for the top of the top. Because our mantra is about being the world's greatest restaurant festival, and we are, and we will maintain our position there. We do have producer prices though, and they are affordable, and they are in most demand of any of the stands that we have.
I'll just add to that, because as a buying team, my team always go to Taste of London, and we'll go and have a look to see what new food trends there are. So you might not actually realise that we're there, but we are walking around having a look and looking at what's going on.
Yeah, and just to be kind of fair, I met the head food person at Selfridges at Taste of London this year. So it was one of those where I kind of, at the time you're thinking, I'm not sure that this is really doing much for me because I'm not selling a lot of product and I'm not going to pay for my spot here. But one chance encounter like that was I didn't know who I was talking to until she then gave me her business card, and we're now in Selfridges. So thank you for that.
But that's a really great point. If you are doing a live event because you want to make more money at the end of it than you had at the start of it, then just go to a little stall anywhere. Don't go to a festival. The point of a festival is that you're reaching a massive audience and you can build your database, which is really, really important to get started. But equally, you know, we spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on marketing to get the right audience. There's 55,000 people, but they're not just anybody. They're people who love food and drink. And we also invite buyers. Thank you for coming. But, and it is the wide range, but it's also the buyers at the restaurants and bars, et cetera, et cetera. So if your only measurement of success is about whether you made more money at the end of it, then I think that that's a wrong measurement. But
yeah, and I think for your festival that is valid because there are the right people there, as you say.
Completely.
Some other events,
yes,
if you're not taking money and you're not already in
yes,
national distribution to be doing a marketing exercise,
yeah,
then there isn't any point in being
yeah,
there. But
agree.
I would agree
Yeah,
with you,
agree.
Taste is different on that front.
Yes.
But there are also things you can do, say with the Soil Association, where we do a Meet the Buyer Day, and that's just something we do with the Soil Association, where we give 10-minute slots to potential suppliers to come in and meet the buyer. So there are all sorts of events you can tie up with that gets you in front of buyers.
I think with any sort of these sort of food festival or trade events or any sort of form of marketing, it's very easy to sometimes sort of try something and then just keep going with it out of habit. I think you sort of have to, you know, sort of measure and sort of look and actually sort of see, you know, did that work for me or did it not? I mean, I've sort of known people who just advertise in papers just because they always have or just because their competitors do, and almost you sort of become fearful of stopping these things because it's like you think maybe your business will sort of fall down overnight if suddenly you haven't got the same ad you've had in the paper for 5 years. So I think it's sometimes some of these things can seem really expensive. I think it's important to try it and just sort of take away and sort of measure that experience and think, did this work for me? Because some trade fairs will work better than others, and it all depends on what you're selling. You know, so that's the sort of best advice I can give, and that applies to all your marketing channels as well.
Just to kind of pick up on that point, small producers aren't different, or startups aren't different from massive brands, but I always get quite shocked at the number of people that buy into an event who haven't actually thought about why they're there. And it's kind of, you really should, because otherwise it's just a very expensive thing to do. And if you don't know how to measure its success, then you just haven't done your homework properly. And so making sure you get in front of the right people, if that's one of your targets, make sure you invite them to come and see you there. You know, they're the kind of things that you can be doing to raise the profile. But to think about it, I'd say, is very critical. And as I say, if it's just to sell more product at the end than you pay for your stand, then it's probably not a great idea.
Like what you were saying earlier, sorry. I mean, I get emails now daily about sort of incentives or people that want to work with Just Eat, and I sort of say the same thing now as what I did when I was a startup. It's like, look, you know, we'll sort of try this, give us a good price now, it looks interesting. If it works, we'll continue with it. Why wouldn't we? But if it doesn't, we'll stop it, and that's the important thing to do.
And you're all at the Virgin Food Festival, which was extremely expensive to go. No, it wasn't. So you're all here today, so you're doing it. I'd love to take more questions, but we're going to have to stop now. But I want to say a huge thank you to the 4 people here for the fantastic contribution.